Hi, everyone. I'm Heben.
I'm Tracy.
And welcome to another round with Heben and Tracy.
Ow, ow!
We're here. It's early. Doesn't matter. We're professionals.
Heben's actually on vacation right now.
I paused my vacation to be here with you all because we have a very exciting guest.
Aw, who's the guest, Heben?
It is the creator of The Wire and the newest HBO miniseries, Show Me a Hero, David Simon, everyone. Yeah. Yes, we're very excited.
Everyone's back.
What else we got for the people, Tracy?
We're going to hear from some babies today.
What do you mean hear from some babies?
Babies are going to give other babies advice on how to be a good big brother or big sister.
Yes.
Since Northwest has a new brother coming? Do we know?
Yes, a new brother.
A new brother. So, Northwest, you're welcome. These babies are going to get you together.
I'm going to personally deliver this to Northwest.
Just walk up to the doorstep.
Hello,
is Northwest home?
Yeah. This is all an elaborate ploy. All right, let's get on with the show.
Woo, 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 woo. Before we get into everything else, I feel like we would be remiss to not acknowledge the VMAs, which came on MTV 2 nights ago. Heben decided that she just couldn't with the VMAs. So we were not going to force her to can. So we have here with us the person who I just decided is our resident VMA expert, Miss Hannah Georgis.
Thank you for having me. I'm only slightly more able to can than Heben, I think.
Well, I feel like
but I will try.
If Hannah's voice sounds familiar to you, it's because she was here on a very early episode, and now she is an employee of BuzzFeed.com, so hopefully you will be reading her stuff. So you watched the VMAs. I watched the VMAs.
Yes.
What are your general feels? Mine too, same. Just lots of sighing.
I don't know. I mean, every time I watch the VMAs, I'm like, why did I do this to myself?
Yeah.
Oh, for the memes. For the memes.
Yeah. But we also get to fume along with everybody else because there was some really awful shit that happened.
Yes.
There were also some really awesome things too, though. So should we start with awesome or awful?
I feel like if we start with awful and build up.
Smart.
You know?
So awful thing number one, Miley was the host.
Oh, well, yeah.
And I feel like every 5 seconds she was just like screaming about how she smokes weed. And I'm just like, you trying so hard.
And like, you can get away with that, right? And we know why Miley, as like, you know, poppy, like thin, like rich white girl, can get away with being like marijuana.
Yeah,
every
she
2
can do anything
seconds.
she wants to.
Right.
It was not fun. Also, the hair, the faux locks that she had, like,
I was disappointed in Miley, which is a feeling that I didn't know that I could have. She's been doing a lot of really interesting stuff recently around gender and like just being aware of social issues, and like you can tell she's actively learning. And so I feel like she's had a bit of a setback in the past few, sort of beginning with her comments about Nicki that nobody invited her to make. So Miley Cyrus, in an interview with the New York Times, sort of responded to some comments that Nicki Minaj had made about her video Anaconda not being nominated. And Miley said, what I read sounded very Nicki Minaj, which, if you know Nicki Minaj, is not too kind. It's not very polite. I think there's a way you speak to people with openness and love. You don't have to start this pop star against pop star war. It became Nicki Minaj and Taylor in a fight, so now the story isn't even on what you wanted it to be about. Now you've just given E! News catfight. Taylor and Nicki go at it.
it's so tired. Like,
yeah, and it was just speaking out of turn. I mean, the way that the conversation between Nicki and Taylor transpired, Taylor apologized for speaking out of turn, for making something that was not about her about her.
Exactly.
And then Miley went and did the same thing after having the example of Taylor having
to still learn.
Right.
And plus the things that she was saying, like, Nicki Minaj is mean because she spoke out against racism in a not nice way.
Right.
Like, what?
What? Like, what did you want her to like grab you on, and like hold your hand?
Exactly.
Did you want her to like walk through a meadow with you and like read you, you know, like Booker T. Washington? I don't know. Like
Uncomfortable.
No.
Miley, stop. No. That's what I used to tell my niece. No. So there was that, and then so there was this really great moment, which we'll get into, when Nicki addressed Miley's comments. I cannot wait to talk about that. But there was also Rebel Wilson's bit that she did. Rebel Wilson comes out dressed like a cop or something, and she starts off, she's like, you know, I know a lot of people have problems with the police, and already at that point, you know, if you're gonna make a joke, you should not make a joke. And of course she made a joke, and it wasn't even a good joke. It was about like strippers who dresses like police officers or something. And it's just so insulting, you know, like, hey, I know this whole entire new civil rights movement is happening because the police keep killing black people, but let's make a joke about that.
Right. And let's make a joke that's like somehow also mocking strippers too.
Right.
So like let's be doubly offensive here. Like let's make light of the fact that people are protesting and organizing around pain and death and like systemic injustice. And also let's take a crack at people who are like working.
Right. I think I saw a tweet from the activist DeRay that said, you know, when was the last time you saw somebody like on an MTV stage making a Holocaust joke or a Sandy Hook joke or something like that? Never, you know?
Right. I struggle sometimes when people say like, you wouldn't make this joke about this group of people, right? Because there's this way that we try to like pit different marginalized groups against each other. But when you look at TV, like like black people are so often the butt of jokes. In industries where black people literally make everybody else money. Right. Like, exactly. There is no VMAs without black people.
Exactly. Like, you're taking our language, you're taking our style, and
our
you're mocking
aesthetic.
us. Yeah.
Our, like, entire way of being. And it's, like, how you entertain yourself and each other.
And then you just smack us in the face.
And you're like,
that's cool.
Oh, your lives, though, those don't matter to us.
Right, exactly. So, from terrible to fantastic.
Yes.
Nicki Minaj.
Whew.
First acceptance speech of the night. So lit. If you're a black girl, it's like so energizing and like validating and motivational. Nicki gets on stage and I think she thanked her pastor first.
Yes, that was the best part. Oh,
that's when you knew it was gonna get down.
Right, you knew somebody was about to need prayer. You were like, okay, the pastor knows. Like that was a code word. It was like, hey,
I know. It's like, before I do this, let me get prayed up. She goes from thanking her pastor to looking at Miley. I think there's still some debate over whether or not this was scripted or not. I'm leaning towards no, it was not scripted. And she's like, but first let me get back to this bitch who had all this to say about me in the media. She was like, Miley was good and her voice got deep. And she did like the little look that black girls give you before like
things are about to go down.
Before it goes down. And Miley's face was priceless. She was just like, what? What?
What's good, Miley?
Like, I screamed in my bedroom. I screamed. Wait. I was like, let me look at Twitter. What's going on? Is this for real? What just happened? Oh my God, please let it be real. And it was real. And I just love black women speaking back and clapping back and being like, no, you're not going to treat me this way. That was the entire show for me. Like the rest of the show, like I like kind of watched it, but I always had like the vines of Nicki going off on repeat.
Right.
And
I just kept
like
looking through people's reactions. Like, what more did you need? Like, you had everybody like systemically, this is why she did it and this is why it mattered. So you had like the like really intense like, I'm gonna give you the like analysis behind this, and then you had people with the gifs and the clapping and then just like every possible form of expression, which is why I love Black Twitter, because folks will give you like the serious stuff and they'll give you just like joke everything. It's like, oh wait, we're like complex human beings. Who'd have thought?
Hey, surprise.
Weird.
So yesterday, Salon tweets about it. Watch Nicki Minaj's savage, profanity-laden rant against Miley Cyrus. Savage. What a word. What a word. I'm always amazed at like the inventive ways that white people find to say nigger without saying nigger.
Right. Where like all the energy that should be spent seasoning food goes.
True though.
I like aioli. Don't.
That was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard in my life. So anyway, the Nicki thing was amazing. And then another awesome part, and like I'm purposefully doing the question mark voice at the end of it, is because Kanye just makes me feel so many different things. So Kanye got on stage and he just Kanye'd all over the place. And there were times I was like, yeah, hell yeah, Kanye, tell him. And then he's like, I'm running for president. And I was like, what? How do we get here? What's going on? What were your thoughts about Kanyeing?
Two things. One, Hotep Twitter a little bit. It was like, they try to keep us down. Like, they do try to keep us down, you know, all these different things. But it was in this very, like, loosely, like, you know, I read a couple pages of, like, they came before Columbus. And, like, I'm going to give you, now I'm going to give you that real. Like, you know, like, what? And also a little, like, drunk uncle. But, like, the drunk uncle that, like, makes good points every once in a while. I was like,
yes. That is a great description of Kanye.
Right. Like, I know you had way too much honey, but.
Yes.
You're kind of right.
So if Kanye runs in 2020, first of all, who do you think his running mate will be? And secondly, will you vote for him?
I feel like his running mate will have to be like a white woman. because I think that he really alienated a lot of white women with the Taylor Swift fiasco of Yonder. Of Your. That's not right.
I feel like she's compensating for not having any black friends by just like
Oh my
shouting
God.
them out and like singing their songs.
Yeah,
all the
when
time.
she brought like everybody on stage,
Uh-huh.
like somebody tweeted that the next person she's gonna bring on stage is like a sentient church hat. Yeah, that's my friend Doreen tweeted that.
Oh my God. Can I tell you who I think his running mate will be?
Yes, please.
A framed picture of himself.
Oh my God.
West 2016. You know what? I would probably vote for him. I probably would. Why not?
I mean, I'd vote for him over a lot of people who are running right now.
Woo, true.
But like just thinking, even in like an alternate world of Kanye in like the White House and what he would do in the White House is kind of a hilarious idea. Like Kanye would just run up through there, like jumping around shit, like
Yes.
being like, these curtains that have been here since like 1897 would make a really great, like, I don't know, parka.
Oh, he would probably make like matching clothes for his whole family, like in The Sound of Music. Oh, little Northwest running around.
Oh,
And the new baby, because they have a new baby coming out.
oh yeah.
Thank you so much for canning where heaven could not. We appreciate it. And please come back again.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Thank you, Nikki.
Yes. Praise Nikki. Praise Nikki. So you can find Hannah on Twitter at
Ethiopian. It's ETHIOPIENNE.
And you can find our work on BuzzFeed at
BuzzFeed.com/Hannah Georgis, HANNAHGIORGIS.
Fantastic. Thank you. See you next time.
Bye.
A while ago, we put out a call to you and your babies. We put out a call to your babies through you, our listeners, to solicit some advice on how to be a good big brother or big sister for Northwest in her new edition coming up. And here's some of what your baby said.
What is your name?
Vi.
How old are you?
3.
How can you be a good older sister?
Huggy.
Huggy, how else?
Kissy. I like to sing her songs, read her books. I like to hug her all day.
Is there anything about your sister you want to say or anything about being a big sister that you want to tell people?
I like to keep it a secret because it's a secret for me, for only sisters.
What's your name?
Damien.
And how old are you?
4. Help your sister get up and take good care of her. Give her a toy. Give her a fluffy thing like a dinosaur. My name is Ames. I'm 3 quarters.
How can you be a good big brother?
I don't know.
How does it feel to be a big brother?
I don't know.
What are some nice things you can do for your younger sibling?
Not bite.
Not bite. Okay, that's good.
Dylan.
How old are you, Dylan?
4.
Are you a big brother?
Yeah.
Who's your little sister?
Clara.
What do you do if she tries to get in the pool without her floaty on?
Save her.
What do you do if the doggy's jumping on her too much? Do you keep the doggy away from her?
Yeah. By running to her.
Do you run fast?
Yeah. My name is Callum McCabe. I am 8 years old. I can help my brothers with their homework. It feels good being an older brother and it feels responsible. I can help them fit in at school. I'm Ainsley and I'm 5. I can play with my sister. I can feed her bottles and hold her. I can make my sister a card. My name is Ava and I'm 5 years old.
What are some nice things that you do for your sister?
I can make her laugh. If she falls, I will make her happy.
What do you do when you see your sister fall?
I just help her up, and if I get in her face, she'll hit me, but it's okay.
Okay, what's your name?
Frank,
How old are you?
4.
If you were going to tell someone else
how to be a good older brother, what would you tell them?
I would tell them to take care of your little brother and to help them and to protect them.
That's nice, Frank.
Sammy, what do you have to do to be a good big brother? Sammy, be serious or else we're not going to go to the pool. What are you going to teach your little baby sister?
Doing funny talking.
Doing funny. What else?
Scout will eat her.
I don't think the dog's going to eat your new baby sister. Okay, what is your name?
Sam.
And how old are you?
3.
3. And what's your new baby sister's name?
Dump truck.
Let's not name her Dump Truck. That's a terrible idea.
Hi, I'm Lara, and I'm 10.
What is something you like about being an older sibling?
Well, aside for the part that my little sister has to do what I say, but I like it just because she's kind of little, and I'm a bit overprotective, and I like it because she's, I just get to... She's little, and I love her, and...
Can you tell me something nice that a person can do for their younger sibling?
Well, if you wanted to be nice to your younger sibling, you could cheer them up with a hug, or play with them, because most older siblings, the older they get, the less often they play with their little siblings. I know that from experience.
My name's Freddie, and I'm 4.
Do you like being a big brother, Freddie?
Yes.
Why?
Because I like my little sister.
What things does she like to play?
Cars.
Is that because you like cars?
Yes. Hattie's favourite car is the Aston Martin of my special cars.
Is she good with your special cars?
Yes.
Does she sometimes break your toys, though?
Tell me your name.
Zenik.
And how old are you?
3. You need to protect your sibling because she's fragile. When he falls off a roof, I will catch him.
When he falls off a roof, you'll catch him?
Yeah. Hug him not too hard. I don't want to talk anymore. Interview's over. Goodbye.
Oh, baby.
This is easily the best idea I've ever had.
Thank you for this.
Easily.
I've been in baby fever mode for the
Yes.
past 2 weeks, and whenever I see a baby, I'm just like, oh my God, can I hold your baby, please?
Yes.
That's what I want to say. I don't ask strangers.
You know
if I
how
can hold their
people are always trying to pet people's dogs in the park?
Yeah.
I'm like that with babies, but you cannot be like that with babies. Ma'am, can I touch your baby? Just pet its head.
snuggle
It's
it.
smooth
Just
head.
Can I snuggle your baby for 2 seconds?
Thanks for sharing your babies with us.
Thank you
They're
so
magical.
much.
Today in the studio, we are very excited to have David Simon on the show. He's the creator of a lot of shows you know and love, including The Wire, Treme, and HBO's new miniseries, Show Me a Hero. He's also the man responsible for the hours of small talk you've made with white people about The Wire.
I can't be blamed for that.
Welcome to the show, David.
Welcome. So we like to start all of our interviews with the same question, and that question is, what do you do and why?
I tell stories because I'm not sure I'm qualified to do anything else. That's generally true. I practice to be a reporter, a newspaperman, and I've morphed into a television writer and producer. I didn't intend that to happen, but it did. But the same logic applies. It's about telling stories, and I don't think I ever learned to do anything differently.
So Show Me a Hero is a miniseries that you can see all the episodes of now on HBO Go, or on HBO. That's how I watch it. It's a real story based off a book by Lisa Belkin, a former New York Times reporter. It follows the story of Nick Wasisco, a mayor in Yonkers in 1987, and a federal judge who ordered that the city build low-income housing in the majority-white East Side neighborhood, which was like the middle-class white neighborhood. So that meant integrating the community, and white people lost their shit, of course.
Of course.
It stars Oscar Isaac as the mayor, Nick Wasisco, and it follows that story to its end, but also there are a lot of secondary characters where you get to see like the people who are actually affected by this story. It's kind of like at the fourth installment that we hear the show title in the show.
Yeah.
Show me a hero and I'll write you a tragedy. What's the significance of that quote? What does that
Well, the quote
mean
was
to
from
you?
Fitzgerald. He wrote the quote years ago, and it was the title of Belkin's book, and I thought particularly apt. The more you scratch at the story, you realize that there are no specific heroes, and yet there are many heroes to the tale, but not in the places you'd expect them. Nick Wasisco, who was elected the mayor, he certainly had no intent of being the champion of this desegregation effort, but found himself thrust into the center of it and obliged to follow the court order. Yeah, he was in some sense not a moral hero, not somebody looking for the moral summit here, but he grew, and that was his journey. There were a lot of other people, neighborhood residents, who were furiously opposed, who grew. And then there's some heroes that you just don't expect, like the bureaucrats, the people who were charged with building the houses. Nobody loves a bureaucrat, do they? But the guys who were trying to figure out how to build these houses so that they didn't destabilize the neighborhoods, or they didn't, induce white flight or lead to the kind of sort of housing mistakes of the 50s, 60s, and 70s. That was a quiet revolution in public housing that they won. So
yeah, this is a very rare case.
Right.
No, I mean, there's actually been this, warehousing the poor in very compact, very isolated areas has always been an incredibly destructive, destabilizing thing.
Mm-hmm.
So the advent of scattered site housing and, 8 units here and townhouses, and you control the house that you live in, and, you don't have to worry about what's in the stairwell or the courtyard.
Mm-hmm.
These were this was a revolution that happened when nobody was paying attention.
Yeah, and there's a lot of attention in the show to like that particular strategy.
Right. Incredibly, can you believe that they made a show about this? But but the truth is, the white residents of East Yonkers were looking at the idea that public housing was coming near them, and they were thinking of the mistakes of the past, and they weren't attending in their anger and in their fear. They weren't attending to the reality that some people had learned some things and were about to do some things differently.
There's a point in the second installment where one of the councilmen says, "Not in my backyard."
He actually says it.
Even the other councilmen are like, "Did you really just say that?"
Because they were actually going to put some of the units right behind
in
his backyard.
Actual backyard.
He was being literal, but like in saying it, you sort of catch yourself up with what a lot of the fear is about.
Mm-hmm.
Years ago, and a guy named Andrew Hacker wrote a great book called Two Nations, and he really documented, there's so much social science research that says there is a significant plurality, maybe even a majority of white Americans that want to live in what they consider to be an integrated situation. They want their kids not to go to an all-white school. They want to be able to say to themselves, my kid has, Black or Latino classmates, and I'm friends with so-and-so, but there's actually, you can put a number on it. It's actually 8%. 8%. If your neighborhood goes 9-10% people of color, that's when the for sale signs go up.
Wow.
And they've actually documented it time and time again. So there is this dynamic in America that is like almost irrefutable. And you don't want to be the last guy out of the neighbor. You don't want to be the last guy putting the for sale and lose your property values. So the whole dynamic of white flight is the fragility of that. You can understand where the fears come from. You mix in the fact that with some people there's the genuine fundamental of racism, and it's a pretty potent mix. And it was for Nick Wasisco. He got torn up by it.
As a writer, how do you write realistic dialogue when white people can be so cartoonishly racist?
Well,
not in my backyard.
It's kind of the problem. I mean, with the reality here is that people think we're being hyperbolic about what's being screamed at those meetings or at the protests in the street. That stuff is pretty much, to a line, accurate. I mean, you can go back, you can look at the footage. You can go on YouTube and see some of the footage. We're not being hyperbolic in the slightest. At one point in one of those hearings, near the microphone, there was a guy wearing a KKK shirt.
Wow.
And people thought that was like some sort of weird subliminal message on our part. No, there really was one guy, who just, to the discomfort of other whites, wore a KKK shirt to the one meeting at the high school. So we put it in there because we felt a fealty to what actually happened. So sometimes, I guess you answer your question, sometimes people are kind of cartoonish in their anger. And then when you get them off stage and they're in the quiet of a living room, or that's where the sort of the more human dialogue takes place.
Yeah. By the end of this, I just found myself thinking a lot about what does political courage even mean? Like,
Right.
what have there been any recent moments in political history that you would categorize under that idea of political courage?
Oh.
A hero, even?
Are there political heroes still?
I have a hard time with that. I think there's right and wrong, but there's also political capital can only be spent effectively in a certain manner. Our current president is now speaking out against probably the thing that I've argued the most against, probably spent most of my career arguing against, which is the drug war and mass incarceration and zero tolerance. These are things that, as a police reporter, I encountered and turned me against our current sort of policing policy. Did he wait until the last 2 years of his second term? Yeah, because because in a way, now the time is opportune. It's hard for me to criticize the strategy. So in answer to your question, I don't think there's any pure courage in politics, in American politics, where the currencies seem to be fear and money. That's what people spend successfully in American politics. If that's the currencies, then truth-telling has to wait for the margins, has to wait for certain windows. And I credit it when it happens. It's happening now, at least on the issue I care about. But man, it was a long wait. This has been 30 years of war on drugs, 40 years of war on drugs and the demonization of the poor.
You were a police reporter, police beat reporter for a long time. What do you think has changed about the way we cover the police, if anything? You seem pretty skeptical about what media can achieve.
I'm holding up my cell phone right now. The smartphone and its camera and the digitization of handheld imagery is a revolution.
So not the reporting.
No. I mean, listen, I was a reporter, and it's funny. I disappoint everybody. I disappoint people on the left, and I disappoint people on the right, because I respect good police work. I covered a lot of good police work. I spent a year in a homicide unit in Baltimore that was very functional. And I've also seen a lot of bad police work, either associated with the drug war or with street policing. And when it comes to police violence, there are two fundamental truths, one of which is the drug war has made anything permissible on the streets, has destroyed probable cause. The opportunity for a police officer to put you up against the wall, go into your pockets, drop you on the curb, put handcuffs on you, stand around trying to figure out what to charge you with.
Yeah.
That's life in Baltimore. And I don't know if you guys have read Ta-Nehisi Coates, who's from my city, and he's actually somebody I admire a great deal. His experience in Baltimore is he hates the police. He's earned that. I mean, that's his childhood and that's his adolescence, and that's the battleground that he had to walk through to become a man. And I get that. At the same time, there's another book out this year by Jill Levy, a police reporter out in L.A., and she makes the point that, like, in Compton, in Florence, in the African-American areas of her city, the clearance rate for murder are like 30%. Like, when you take a black life in South Central LA, your chance of being punished for it is incredibly minimal, and that leads to counter violence, extracurricular counter. I mean, it basically feeds the murder rate. You got to take care of it on your own because the police are not coming. There's just no connection anymore in my city, in Baltimore. It's astonishing. No connection between community and law enforcement. It's just gone. And the drug war, I think, is the worst culprit. But if you're a cop and you used to be, it's my word against yours on this corner. And maybe there's some witnesses, but they're going to have to run the gauntlet of a grand jury, and they better not be, they better not have paper on them. And, if they've got criminal histories, I'll knock them down. And if I can write better than they can talk, I'll get out of this. And as police reporter, you knew this. I mean, you sort of knew that, like, one of the last tyrannies in America was always the police officer on his post, the individual officer. You're only as good as the individual officer. And that was sort of sad for the guys who were trying to do the job straight. You know, guy comes on and he's beating everybody up and throwing people around, and then you come on the 12th. You know, you come on the next shift, 4 to 12, and everybody's at war with you, and there's no way to do good police work. So it's always been a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But now with these things, with the smartphone, it's not just your word against mine. It's, hey, look at the video. It's up on YouTube, and that's a revolution. That goes beyond reporting.
Yeah. A lot of people call you cynical. There's a point in, I think the second episode where the lawyer for the NAACP says, I swear every time I worry I'm getting too cynical, I see I'm not even keeping pace. I was like, is that David? Do you identify as cynical?
Yeah, I wrote that line. I don't identify as cynical. It's funny. I feel as if I'm a realist, and I'm not willing to opt out of the idea that good governance has to be the solution here. That, like, okay, you know, a lot of people embraced The Wire because they thought it was some sort of libertarian argument against, oh, well, you know, listen, government can never work. And he's basically mocking. No, listen, the critique of bad government is the fundamental first responsibility in democracy. But the end result, in my mind, always has to be better. Yeah, you know, and by the way, it never gets perfect, and it's always a constant fight to make it better than it was yesterday. And if you give up the fight, it can always get worse. But it's unrelenting, and it's never going to be fixed. It's only going to be every day you get up and you kill another snake. But I don't feel the slightest bit cynical about the notion that it is our government.
Your blog is called The Audacity of Despair,
which is amazing. I feel like if I were to make a mixtape tomorrow, that's what I would want the mixtape title to be.
A very speaking of cynicism, a very cynical piece about me in the Atlantic years ago that was. I thought very insubstantial. Used that as a headline with a frowning picture of me. This is right after Obama's autobiography came out. I thought it was just like, you know what? I have to embrace that. You know, they're making me angrier and more dyspeptic and more hostile than I actually feel. But I guess the way to counter that is to play with it. And I thought, this is pretty funny. I'm going with it.
Yes. In a recent interview with Slate, you said everything is not The Wire. In response to like this question about white people kind of channeling Baltimore.
Well, there's a lot of good stuff in The Wire, and certainly I think it's a very good critique of the drug war, and there is stuff in there about the excesses of police violence. But
do you ever want to just like tell people, like white people, to chill out?
Well, what I want to tell them to do is, you know, that it's lazy to strain everything, every new headline, every new event, just because it's black folk in Baltimore. There's a lot. Listen, I don't mean to disfigure The Wire either. We made The Wire. We thought it meant a lot. We wouldn't have spent 5-6 years doing it if we didn't. And there's a lot of good stuff in there, and you should watch it. But you don't need to strain every dynamic, you know, through a fictional television show. You can attend to it first as facts on the ground, to you know, as public policy today, and as an argument to be had right now in the public wheel. And do that, and then, you know, maybe 5-6 years from now, somebody will make some fictional narrative into, you know, or some art or some representational art about Freddie Gray or about what happened now or about the uprising and then the riot. Art has its place, but why are we reaching back for this one piece of art to explain everything in Baltimore when the Baltimore dynamic is incredibly complicated and subtle?
Why do you think people do that?
Because it's just their reference point, and because people are lazy. There's a lot of commentary that's lazy. By the way, there were other people who wrote, you know, The Wire can't answer Freddie Gray. You know, I don't mean to suggest that we failed to explain something that or failed to acknowledge some of the terms of engagement. But man, you know, Freddie Gray's right in front of you. This moment's right in front of you. This indictment's right in front of you. This uprising, this anger, this sense of disempowered, you know, humanity. Let's attend to that first, and then afterwards we can come up with all sorts of reference points. Don't go rocketing first for the old television show that you think explains everything.
You've written a lot of shows. and miniseries.
It seems like it now. Yeah, at the time, they all happened one at a time. But yeah, I feel old now. Thank you very much.
What has been the makeup of your writing staffs? This plural is giving me a hard time.
Well, it's changed over the years.
How has it changed?
Well, I tend to pick up people who know the world that we're writing about. I have some core people that I've made a lot of TV with. Ed Burns, Dave Mills, George Pelicanos. I tend to tailor the writing staff to the universe we're writing about. And I try to get local cooking, home cooking. Certainly if it's an extended project and you're making stuff up, make sure you have people from New Orleans in the room to counter any, sort of presumptions. So
yeah, in an interview, I think from 2006, you talked about how you tell whoever the casting people or whoever's in charge of this to like try to only give you spec scripts or whatever from African American writers.
Yeah, I would love to listen. I love to champion people if we can find voices that can work with their dynamic. I have to say, our scripts are the least like television.
Right.
So
it's hard to write a spec script for that.
Right. I mean, we're sort of running counter to a lot of things that work in television, and they don't work on our show in the sense that you may notice we don't exactly pull audience with the greatest of ease, but it's what we want to do. And so there are a lot of good, aggressive Black writers, Latino writers who are completely engaged in L.A. or New York, trying to write their way into an industry that I'm trying to write my way out of the industry. I'm trying to write my way away from. I know I'm in it. I know that I'm part of the entertainment industry, but I am trying to do something that is, I know the script starts really slow, and I know I have a 3-page scene of bureaucracy, but I needed to tell the story that I want to tell, not to tell the story that would be a good TV franchise. So you're basically asking people to unlearn everything that they've. So I tend not to hire people who are trying to become television writers. I tend to hire novelists or people who've never written television. Like one of the projects I'm working on now, which is the last volume of the King trilogy by Taylor Branch at Canaan's Edge. The people in the room are Eric Overmyer. That's my one concession to guys I've worked with who, can help me produce. And then it's Taylor. And then it's Ta-Nehisi Coates. And then it's James McBride, who won the National Book Award for the amazing John Brown book. And me. There's nobody in there that woke up one morning and said, I want to be a TV writer. And that's why I'm interested in them. Because
that's refreshing.
Because, there's... it's like if you woke up one day and said, I want to write hour-long TV dramas, there's a little part of me, maybe I don't mean, he's going to sound like a snob bastard.
It's a safe space.
Yeah, he's gonna sound like a prick, but he's gonna. There's something wrong with you. Then you should have had some better ambition. So I tend to hire those people, but I mean.
So do you just go to Ta-Nehisi and be like, I know you've never written a TV show.
That's exactly what I did.
Trust me.
But I've been reading his essays. There's nobody smarter on. I mean, here's the other thing: is that when you get into African American writers, it's hard when there's only one of them in the room because they're sort of being obliged to. There's I'm the David Mills, who one of my oldest friends. We worked on the college paper together, and who wrote. I wrote my first hour of TV with him. African American writer. I'm heartbroken. He died when we were filming Treme, very young, but he used to call himself the lone Negro because he said,
we know that feeling very well.
You're the only guy in the room, and the room is it's people who are trying to be benign, but they're basically and what do black people think? They turn to you, and you go well, they think a lot of shit, and they, and it's and we don't all agree, and we think different things at different times, and so. It's interesting because McBride and Ta-Nehisi, James and Ta-Nehisi, they don't agree on everything. And at the same time, that's great because, the room has to be collegial. It has to have affection for disagreement, for argument, or the argument makes it better. And certainly, the white guys aren't agreeing with everything. So in the end, what you're hoping for is not even quite perfect consensus. You're hoping to have it all represented somewhere in the script. So, Coates is astonished by the idea of nonviolence, that anybody could put up with that, to his sensibilities, he's watching, things like Selma or even earlier, the stuff that, people go, the Freedom Riders and all. And he's like, who lets themselves get beat this? You know, he's the son of a Black Panther, and he has a dynamic that is, you know, one of the most thoughtful. You know, his demeanor is not revolutionary, but his thoughts are.
Yes.
And so it's interesting to watch his dynamic, whereas, you know, I think James is more of sort of the Black church and the whole essence of the heroism of nonviolence is more rooted in him. And Taylor was there. You know, Taylor was sort of there in the moment in Mississippi and Alabama, and so he has a fealty to the facts as he knows them. It's an interesting dynamic to watch the room sort of work. But, you know, I've had situations where one guy in the room was being asked to do too much.
How do you get feedback about something like that? Are they like honest with you? Being like, I can't do this. Yeah. I can't keep being the go-to or something.
Well, I mean, David Mills and I, you know, I'm sorry he's not around anymore, but we were friends for so long, we'd sort of moved past race. You know, and never like, oh, I didn't notice you were Black. But it was more like we'd had so many discussions about so much stuff, and he was kind of all over the map. He had moments of absolute sort of racial assertion, and other moments where he would turn around and sort of mock racial assertion as being, oh, that's like he would turn on what he thought was cant or tripe in a heartbeat. You know, whether it was white or Black, he was a really, you know, he wanted to be his own thought. We were in absurd situations where I would be defending something sort of almost reflexively as, you know, I'm a lefty, and it was landing in my lefty wheelhouse of, well, this is this and this is this, and he'd be like, oh, bullshit, that's just bad parenting. And I'd be like, Dave, you know, you're supposed to have my back. He'd go, why? You know, why? So, I mean, there would be moments of role reversal. So, like, when you work with people for a while, after a while you're working with people and nobody's in the room representing anything. And that's when you do your best work. Until it gets to that, you can't know. You can't know what people are holding back. Did you guys read that amazing thing about Wyatt?
Yeah, his interview with Mark Maron.
Yeah, because here he is in the room alone, and it's a benign room, and they're trying to be, but you know, he's actually calling them on something that's not going well, and they should have left. You know, it was probably a bridge too far. Listen, comedy is, you have to be out on the cutting edge to do comedy, to do it well. And so you're going to risk falling on. So, okay, so here's a moment where Jon Stewart, maybe, you know, this wasn't as funny as he thought it was. And maybe this had it was leaving a taste in people's mouths. It was you want to think about this before you go there again. And I'm reading it and I'm thinking the only sin here on anybody's part is that they got mad and they stopped the argument. I mean, I think if they let that argument go on until it spends itself out, and they find consensus by letting everybody get, you know, shutting it off and walking away from the argument and leaving that in your writer's room.
Yeah.
Like they say, never go to sleep angry at your spouse. You know, never walk out of the writer's room when an argument's getting good. Let the argument play out. You'll get to a place where everybody can stand if everybody's of goodwill. But if you shut it down because it's dissent, I think that was probably the moment where, you know, that's where Jon Stewart lost a good writer. Yeah. At that moment.
Do you ever wonder if you are the right person to tell the story?
Yeah, there's a lot of stories I don't try to tell. They're not my stories in the sense of I'm not interested in the dynamic as much as I should be in order to give a year or two or three to developing it. You got to love the story for what it is. If what you're getting at is here's a white guy and he's telling a story and it has a lot of Black characters, or here's, you know, I didn't ask to be a reporter. I wanted to be a reporter for a newspaper, and the biggest newspaper in my state where I grew up was the Baltimore Sun. And I went to the Baltimore Sun and they made me. I walked in the door. I wrote my way onto the paper as a stringer, and about 100 bylines. And a year later, they offered me a job and they put me on the police beat. And so all of a sudden, I'm a white guy and I'm in a city that's, you know, 60% African American. And I got to learn to hear voices and attend to stories and narratives and people who are not like me, and who had a different dynamic, and the government there has a different. And by the way, the cops aren't like me. I'm not Irish or Italian, and I'm not, I didn't come up the way they came up. And so I'm a suburban kid from outside of Washington, D.C. And so I had to learn things outside of myself. And that was my job, and I took it seriously. If they'd have made me some other kind of reporter, the wire wouldn't have resulted, but I wasn't a Marine either. And I didn't go to Iraq. And at some point, that got the nature of war got interesting to me, and young men at war. And so I wrote that story. Did I want to have Evan Wright in the room? Yeah. I didn't want to try to write that without Evan Wright. Or with Ed Burns, who'd been to Vietnam. I wanted those two guys in the room with me. But I've lost patience with the idea of like, these are only, that we all live in our respective ghettos. These are only black stories. These are women's stories. Right. Thank God they let the men write the women, or we wouldn't have Madame Bovary. Thank God they let the Gentiles write the Jews, or we wouldn't have Schindler's List. At some point, at some core value, we are all more alike than we want to admit. We're in the fact that we're human. Are there things that I've missed writing because I'm white and I'm writing characters who aren't white at times, or who are not men? Yeah, I think I actually did a poor job in my earlier projects of writing women, because I paid less attention to women of any color than I had to anybody, because, I don't know, a lot of guys, like, the less they know about women, the better when they're younger, like, you see, maybe it's incuriosity or maybe it's fear, but like, I'm not sure I actually want to know what you're thinking, because then
it's fear.
Then I might have to reflect on myself in ways that I really don't want. Let's just pretend that you're thinking like a guy, and I can write you that way. As I've gotten older, I think I've gotten better at certain things, but I can't credit the notion of we're all going to write, because eventually you follow that logic to its remote ending, and the only guy that can write a story about a redheaded Inuit lesbian is a redheaded Inuit lesbian. And there's a terminus for that. And it's almost inhumane in my mind, the idea of, wait a sec, I'm in this city, and should they have hired an African-American police reporter in my place? Maybe, that's a fair question. Like, why was the Baltimore Sun hiring me? Well, I gave them 100 bylines, and I wrote my way onto the paper sort of aggressively, and so I could play at the idea of it's a meritocracy, but hey, they needed more black reporters to cover Baltimore City on the city desk, and they didn't get them. On some level, I guess I've just lost patience for that, because like, these are stories, and I want to tell them. I can't.
How did you learn to write women better?
I grew up some, and by the way, I'm still, I approach every scene with a little voice of terror inside me going, this is her scene, not yours. And see if you can get out of the way, schmuck. Because I'm not suggesting that I've become the best possible writer in all respects, but I have to write scenes where there are women in the room and where the women have POV. And the other thing to do is to have we're about to start a project about Times Square in the 70s and 80s when it all went to shit, when it all went to porn, and that industry came up out of nowhere. Suddenly porn was legal. Suddenly. So, where
sounds interesting.
And it's about the pioneers of an industry that was about to become $1 billion and, ubiquitous in American life. I started the project with George Pelecanos, two white guys, because the story came to us over the transom, and it was largely in the POV of this one sort of mob front who ran a lot of 42nd Street in those years. But as we started to expand the story, we realized we got to get women in this room, and we got to get enough women so they can argue forcefully and from different points of view, because there's no way we're writing the show without women. That would be, that would just be a form of insanity. And part of what happens is you write a scene and you take a risk, and then you show it to a colleague who's a woman, and she says, this, but not this. Stay away from me. What are you thinking? And the argument makes it better. When a writer's room isn't arguing, something's gone wrong. I'm scared of this part.
This is like a Rorschach test or something. This is my favorite part where I have to tell important people the name of this segment, which is pew, 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 pew. So these are finger guns.
Rapid fire is the
Rapid
idea.
fire is the thing.
I don't know that I'm that rapid.
Well, you absolutely do not have to be rapid.
Okay.
So a question that has become customary for us to ask everybody is, how do you feel about squirrels?
Rats with tails.
We'll allow
Excellent
it.
answer.
Great answer. So this question is particularly near and dear to my heart. I have been trying to figure out I feel like I know at least like 3 people who have met the president. I always ask what he smells like, and everybody's like, oh, I don't know, I didn't notice. And it just breaks my heart every time. So please don't break my heart.
You were interviewed by Obama.
Yes.
What did he smell like?
He smelled tall.
Wow. Tell me more. What does that mean?
He's just a really tall guy. And like when you meet him, you're like, holy shit. You're like,
really?
Yeah, it's sort of like Black Lincoln. Like, oh, damn. You are tall. You
like
know?
over 6 foot?
Oh, yeah.
Oh
yeah.
my gosh, I never considered him.
I would say
tall.
like 6'3". I mean, he's tall. And,
I'm swooning.
And so it's like you're already looking up, like you're already sort of. I mean, I would be this way for any president, to be honest with you. You meet the president of the United States, like, you know, I'm looking at the president of the United States. He's as far away from me as you are now.
Mm-hmm.
When you have to look up to,
wow,
you know, that's sort of like that. Oh my God, you know, I just felt like I was a grade school kid for a moment. Like there were moments like in the middle of a sentence where I'd be looking at going, I can't remember how to finish the sentence because I'm looking at the president of the freaking United States.
Oh my gosh. And he smelled tall. I like that. I like that.
That's an excellent answer.
It's the best answer that I've gotten from anybody who's met the president before.
You have 2 first names. Do you ever wake up and you're like, today I'm going to go by Simon David?
There's a little part of me that wants to go by the real name before Ellis Island was Simonowski. He was Russian and from what is now Belarus, from Minsk. And I often want to restore that because I think it makes me sound even more lefty, more Trotsky.
It definitely does.
Yeah, at that point, they know that they know my affiliations when they hear Simonowski. They know he's a Jewish liberal bastard. Yeah. So there's times where I want to go back to that.
What's the last show you binge watched?
Sopranos. I didn't watch it when it was on the air because I didn't want to have it in my head when I was doing The Wire, and we were sort of contemporaneous of each other. But I went back and saw The Sopranos and went through those box sets at a pretty good clip. That's great work. It's a meaningful show.
I still have not seen The Sopranos.
And it's worth it.
I know.
It's worth it.
I know.
It really is. There's something really dark and very disturbing that he has at the core of sort of the American experience that he got through those characters. It is just, you know, it's a pretty timeless show.
I'm sold. What's your favorite song to sing in the shower?
What do you mean?
Well, he's a declared socialist, and so am I. But I don't know how that can possibly play with the mass of the electorate. I think that's a losing hand. I'd like to hear more from Jim Webb, who's a centrist from Virginia. In some ways, maybe a little too centrist for me, but he was one of the early guys out against mass incarceration and the need to back off from zero tolerance. He was early on it, and I admired that at least. I wish Hillary was doing a better job of seizing the moment. I think she's laid back long enough, and if she's going to be a good, viable, strong candidate, she needs to make her case. On the Republican side, I feel the need to be sort of have some equanimity here. Only one of those guys doesn't sound insane to me. Kasich from Ohio. You know, he's to the right on some issues that I disagree with him, but he's been a functional governor, and he seems to
functional.
His sentences they follow a logical course. They're sort of devoid of the usual demagoguery over on that side of the political spectrum. So I'm a pragmatist. I just want to. It can always get worse. It can always get worse. You know, if you think that the purity of your vote, you know, for the candidate that doesn't violate your sensibilities on half a dozen issues. You know, this guy thinks everything I think, and therefore, you know, I just want to win. I don't want to lose, and even if winning is with a small W.
There's a lot of Springsteen in Show Me a Hero.
Yeah.
What's your favorite Springsteen jam?
Oh God.
Was that like all you, the Springsteen?
No, you know, actually, it's funny. We were trying for a voice of Nick because it's never like, with a couple of exceptions where it's mostly him pressing the jukebox or his car radio. And we were like, what is his tonality, in these years of '88. You know, he's a white, 1 year as a cop, white ethnic politician, New York area. And we tried a bunch of different stuff. And the thing I originally tried was I tried all this old R&B. Because you know how like white guys, like when they're like, you know, like he would never be listening to anything. He would, like, hip hop wouldn't have penetrated his world at all.
Not at all.
No, but you know, they go to a party and you know they're happy to put on Otis Redding or you know whatever or Motown. You know, the standard white entry point. So it's like, so we did it with all this old R&B, and I liked it, and I was arguing for it, and Paul Haggis, the director, said, you know, it's implying a racial camaraderie that isn't there in the beginning, that isn't earned. Let's try something else. And we tried various things, and we tried heavy metal, which is actually what the real Nick liked. But like,
really,
yeah, there's nothing thematic about AC/DC. So sorry, there isn't. So I mean, you know, or Guns N' Roses. So eventually, we got around to we tried. What about Springsteen? And it felt like, wow, this is the voice of a guy who thinks he's on the side of the angels. You know, who comes into politics and thinks, you know, because there's that very genuine populism of the Springsteen stance that would have appealed to a guy like Nick. So it's not really art. Like, you know, in my mind, it's like I'm not championing Springsteen here. Nick is, and it's working for Nick. You know, you get to the projects. It's 1987, 88. You want to hear, you know, Public Enemy or you know whatever. But this is Nick's story, and when I'm around him, I kind of wanted him to have a musical voice. What's my favorite Springsteen song? It's probably something off Nebraska, something really dark and depressing. Johnny 99.
Prison for 98 in a year, we'll call it even Johnny 99.
I mean, the Springsteen made sense to me. It's like the mustaches, the suits.
Right.
It
just fit. It just fit. And the one we worked back from is there's a song that, Lift Me Up. He wrote it for another film by John Sayles, I believe. And we put it to the last sequence. And it fit astonishingly. And once you see, I don't want to say what the last sequence is, but like once we put it in that sequence, we worked back and we were like, you know, okay, so now he's in the car. What's out? It's now 87. Okay, so the River's out, but this album's not out. Well, let's listen to track by track. What would he be listening to in the car? And all of a sudden it was like, you know, this is Nick. This is Nick. And then, of course, I called his widow, Nye, and said, did Nick like Bruce Springsteen? And she said, no, he hated him.
Oh, my God.
I said, okay, we never talked.
Where can people find you? Where can people find your work?
Anything coming up that you would like to promote?
No. I mean, Show Me a Hero will be in you know, you can go to HBO Go and it'll still be available for a while now that it's run its course. You know, people find my stuff years later. That's the MO is they got to The Wire years later. They got to Generation Kill years later. Hope one day they'll get to Treme. I love Treme. You always love the children that nobody loves, but I love Treme. And I think, you know, this one, hopefully it'll get some shelf life because it's still going on right now. It's you know, it's contemporaneous. The whole dynamic of a segregated America and these two separate nations is endemic, and it just keeps happening over and over again. And until we solve that, you know, we're not going to get very much right in our cities. And I hope they find it. So, you know, go to HBO Go or go steal the box set from, you know, wherever
DVDs. Those are still things.
So America and the King Years and the Times Square show, that's still in development. It's pilot stage.
The King thing is the scripts we're working on them now.
Okay.
In fact, I'm the bottleneck on that. I got to deliver a script yesterday.
Okay.
If I had to guess, I'd say that's probably going to come out for the anniversary of the assassination. 18.
Okay.
And then I'm about to shoot the pilot for the Times Square show. And then I got another pilot order on a Capitol Hill show that's coming up next year. So at some point,
a lot happening.
somewhere around late 16, maybe I get something out. Or maybe not. Maybe I just keep getting pilot orders and never getting anything too serious. You know?
Well, we're excited to watch and see what happens.
Me too. I'll let you know when we know.
Please do. Thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you for having me.
It was a
It's been
pleasure.
great.
Yes,
This was
absolutely.
fun. Thank you so much.
Yay, come back anytime.
All right. right, it's that time again.
What time is it?
Time to buy some rounds.
Rounds.
Who are you buying a round for?
I am buying a round for the reality television series Flavor of Love.
Oh, God.
Do you remember Flavor of Love?
Who could forget?
Oh, my God. So
that was such an era of VH1.
The golden years is what I like to call it.
Okay.
The golden years of reality television. I rewatched the first season because it's on Hulu. It's on Hulu. Mm-hmm. It holds up, man. It's still good reality TV. So wait, a little bit of background in case some of our listeners have never seen it. If you haven't, stop everything. If you are at work right now, leave. Go home
to watch Flavor of
Love.
Tell your boss that.
So VH1 had a show called The Surreal Life, where they had just like a bunch of like washed up celebs all living in the house together. And on like season 3 of that, I think, Flavor Flav lived in the house along with Brigitte Nielsen, who is an actress, right? They like fell in love on the show. And like they had, Heben just made a face. Yeah. They were popular and just like weird enough to get their own show.
Jesus.
Their show was called Strange Love for obvious reasons.
Okay.
So they broke up. And so VH1 decided to help Flavor Flav find love. And so that led to Flavor of Love. It's basically The Bachelor with Flavor Flav and his like big clock and like all these ridiculous clothes. And he's in this house of like 25 girls. And he gives them all these ridiculous nicknames because he was like, I'm not going to be able to remember their names. And they had names like, there was Red Oyster, there was Sirius, there was like Apples and Bubbles, and just like ridiculous names, right? And this is also where we are introduced to Tiffany New York Pollard for the first time.
She is who I'm familiar with from this.
It was just such good, engrossing TV. And like, it was dramatic, but like not in a sad way, sort of, because like the absurdity of the show like let you like engage with it without like feeling bad for humanity overall. I mean, like I felt a way when I would see like women kiss Flavor Flav in the mouth. That's not. That made me sad. It did. But
Didn't
like
that happen like every episode?
Yes. And like he would like open like his entire face would just become like an open mouth, right?
Oh my
and it was
God, Tracy.
I don't recommend anybody watch those scenes anyway. But like I like a lot of like trashy reality TV shows today. But like a lot of it is just like, because it's posited as if like these are the lives these people actually live. So like Basketball Wives LA, for example. There's this old ass woman, Jackie Christie, who is just like insane, and she spends all of her time trying to be friends with like little 22-year-olds who don't like her. Even though you know that a lot of it is probably scripted, it's just like, yo, your life is sad. You know, like if this is like,
it does make me sad.
Yeah, but Flavor Flav is like, yo, you're talking to girls named Oyster and Bubbles, and you're wearing a Viking hat on a romantic date to KFC. Like, I can laugh at this, you know?
Yes.
Like, everybody knows that it's absurd. It was just so good. And it gave us so many other great television shows like it. So there were 3 seasons of Flavor of Love. That led to New York having her own spinoff show, I Love New York. There were, I think, 2 seasons of that. They had a very genius stretch.
And there
with
was
this
like
whole
Charm
friend.
School?
Charm School, you're right. They did a couple seasons of Charm School where
VH1 milked this shit.
They milked the hell out of it. And I watched all of it. I really did. So I just keep thinking about how lit Twitter would have been if it existed
in 2006.
When Flavor Love was on. It would have been so good.
Oh my God, you should make like a watch party via Twitter.
Yeah, see if we can all just like get together and like hit play
Twitter
at the same time. Maybe I might try to do that. But this is like
another round TV club. I'm so into that. I don't understand why more people don't have TV clubs in general.
Would you like to rewatch it with me?
You know, I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
That's fair. That's fair. But this is like the ultimate in pop culture comfort food for me. It's great. So around for
Flavor
Flav and all of its contestants in every show that it gave birth to.
I mean, I think it also spawned VH1's interest in making shows about Black women in the vein of.
So we can either thank or
VH1
blame.
Made a lot of money off of that.
Woo! Listen, when there's time
Shout
for
out to
reparations, VH1 better cut a big check.
VH1's portion of the reparations tab is huge.
Outlandishly large. Who are you buying around for?
I would like to buy around for Carly Rae Jepsen. Oh my God, Tracy.
I'm sorry.
Let me live.
I will permit you to live.
As my roommate likes to call her, Carly Slay Jepsen.
Wow. Wow.
Which I will allow.
Wow.
She just released her second album, her sophomore album, Emotion. if you're like me and you enjoy like infectious bubblegum pop, like happy music, which is very opposite from who I am as a person. This is how I get it in my life, you know?
Okay.
I don't naturally produce it. But it's so good. It's like really good crush music. She had her single, which everyone heard, I Really, Really Like You, which I loved. Tracy's man, Tom Hanks, is also in the video, which is interesting.
Daddy.
Cool.
Hey.
Like, I have a very unreasonable crush right now.
Aww.
And I find that song's perfect for my life right now.
Baby
But then-
Heaven in love.
I'm right here. I'm not baby
I'm
heaven.
sorry. I'm sorry.
But like the whole album is like 80s summer, like rollerblades. Maybe you got like a basket with your bike, like riding around. You know, like that's the vibe I get. Honestly, this should have been released at the beginning of summer. It's a very summer album. So the title track is this song called Emotion. And I was just like walking down the street, just like belting. It's so good.
In your head and I won't stop until you forget me, get me not in your fantasy. Dream about me and all that we could do with this emotion.
It's just so beautiful.
That's very cute.
It's so cute.
It sounds like if Lisa Frank made music.
Oh my God. You ain't lying, but it's great. It's a little like Lisa Frank meets Paul Abdul, maybe.
Yeah.
I am buying my round for Carly Slae Jepsen.
Yay.
I'm excited for her. Someone also tweeted me Carly Bae Jepsen, which I will also allow.
Aww.
She's so cute.
Everybody is adorable. More shout outs. Shout out to David Simon, who I cannot believe that we talked to and like shook hands with. That's
and gave
crazy.
us like a long interview.
Yeah.
Thank you for being generous, sir.
Thank you so much. Also, shout out to the Pod Squad.
Pod Squad.
Eleanor Kagan, who was here with us at the crack of dawn this morning. We appreciate you so much. To Jenna Weiss Berman, who just got married.
Yo.
What the hell? She's got a wife. It's so crazy. She's an adult.
And shout out to Julia Furlan,
Who is also on vacation. She
Yes.
is on her way to Europe right
You
now.
guys, we
Everybody
all
going
deserve
on
vacations.
Shout out to Paul Ruest. Shout out to Heaven.
Shout out to Tracy.
Yay. Shout out to our musicians. Miss Jean Gray. You can follow her at Jean Greasy on Twitter. And Donwill, who you can follow on Twitter at Donwill. That's DONWILL. Shout out to everybody who interviewed their adorable baby friends for us. That's Allison McCabe, Jesse Baker, Sarah Blackwood, Betsy Pedrego, Dan Coyce, Jennifer Bell, Erica Barnes, Dorothy Robinson Scott, David Lightfoot, Rebecca Rosen, and Laura Coates. Shout out to balloons. Balloons. But I like balloons. They make me happy.
Okay.
When's the last time you had just like a bunch of balloons? Been a while.
It has. You're right.
I'm gonna buy you a balloon one day, just because.
I really appreciate that.
It's gonna be a purple balloon.
Oh my God, Tracy, that's so sweet.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
As always, you can find us on Twitter. I'm Heaven Rants. Heaven, like...
I believe in you. You got this.
Heaven, like the place I was named after that I don't believe in. Rants, like the only verb people use to describe Kanye speaking. That's Heaven Rants, ladies and gentlemen.
You can find me on Twitter at Brokey McPoverty. That is Brokey as in sad times and McPoverty as in sadder times.
Yes.
Y'all, I still have an iPhone 4. I feel really embarrassed about that. Please do. Please do.
And if you like the show, rate us on iTunes and leave a review if you feel so moved.
Yes, and follow us on Twitter and on Facebook at Another Round.
And email questions and just general advice you would like to anotherround@buzzfeed.com.
Yes. Call your mom and them.
Take your meds, drink some water.
Do some stretching.
Invest in a nice robe.
Oh.
I just got a nice robe, guys. If you're ever wondering what I'm doing, I'm in my room with a candle lit, in my robe.
In your robe.
Probably like scrolling through Tumblr. But yes, robes are the move, guys.
Okay, get a robe.
Get a robe.
I'll work
Treat
on that.
yourself.
Bye, Heaven. Have fun.
Thanks. I'm so
Bye,
excited.
guys. Thanks for listening.
Bye, guys. Love you. Woo! Yeah! Hands.
Hands.
All right.
You just put your hands in the air and you're the hands.
Okay, can you please say your whole name and how old you are?
I don't know my whole name.